Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 7th of February 2023. These are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the updates as far as the devastating earthquake that has rocked Türkiye as well as Syria is concerned. The latest figures show around 3,381 people who've lost their lives in Türkiye alone. Around 1,500 plus have lost their lives in Syria. There is help that is coming from across the world. Pakistan is on the forefront when it comes to helping its brethren in Türkiye as well as its brethren in Syria. Many consignments have gone to Türkiye as we speak. There's also the whole batch of doctors and paramedics that have arrived in Türkiye and have gone to help those who are in need. Pakistan has assured its full support to its Turkish as well as its Syrian brethren, and of course other countries have also pledged their support to Türkiye in this hour of need. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has proclaimed 3 months of emergency in Türkiye as a result of this devastating earthquake, because the numbers are only going to increase as far as the situation is concerned. This is of course the deadliest earthquake that Turkey has seen in quite some time. In fact, Turkey has seen in quite some time. This is going to be our first segment. This 7.8 magnitude earthquake that has caused havoc within Turkey and Syria. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the impact as far as the world is concerned. Antonio Guterres, United Nations Secretary General, has also highlighted this in a recent address. He has talked about ways and means to end this conflict and how this conflict, if it prolongs, because it's going to be almost a year that this conflict is going on, how it's going to impact and has already impacted the world, whether it be in the form of economic issues or geopolitical or geostrategic issues. This is going to be our second story. Then we will be talking about Chinese scientists who have developed a natural biological adhesive from snail mucus that is going to heal traumatic injuries and chronic wounds. We always know that nature has different kinds of healing properties as far as wounds, as far as injuries are concerned, and this is a very interesting discovery as far as traumatic injuries and chronic wounds is concerned. Snail mucus will now be able to help those who have gotten chronic injuries. Interesting story that we'll be covering as our last story of the day. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the devastating earthquake that has impacted Türkiye as well as Syria. The impacts were felt way beyond these two countries, and of course the world is extremely concerned by the way these two countries have been impacted by the earthquake. The numbers are increasing. As I said in the very beginning, around 3,381 people have perished in Türkiye alone, more than 1,500 in Syria, and the number of casualties is in the tens of thousands. Not only that, there is the whole devastation in the forms of the infrastructure that has been completely destroyed. To talk about that, what needs to be done, Pakistan, that is also on the forefront to help those in need. We've been joined by two important guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Naveed Aman Khan Saab. He's an analyst. Naveed Saab, it's a pleasure to have you here in the studios as well. And our second guest joins us online. We will be, of course, introducing him in a short while. Let's begin with Naveed Aman Khan Saab. Naveed Saab, have you ever seen an earthquake so devastating in the last few years? We know that Türkiye went through an earthquake in which 17,000 people perished, but this is equally, if not more devastating, because not only Türkiye but also Syria has been impacted by this earthquake. How important is it for the world to join in the efforts together as one, as far as helping their brethren, those in need in Türkiye and in Syria?
Khalid, in fact, this earthquake is a big calamity. It's a big tragedy. As far as your part of the your first question is, Pakistan has faced very serious, very devastating earthquake in 2005 in Azad Kashmir in the northern part of Pakistan.
So we understand the plight of the people.
Yes, I can feel and I can understand practically. I have gone through those areas and I have seen the life and the properties, damages, the casualties in Pakistan. And the way Cuba, Turkey and the other countries of the world, they rushed to Pakistan to rescue the humanity here. The same way, the intensity and the magnitude of this earthquake is too big too big, I think. 7.8 is a big.
And you know, not only this earthquake, all the aftershocks that came
Absolutely.
after and are still coming. And this is what a lot of seismologists say, that these aftershocks are going to continue for quite some time.
Absolutely. And the way the whole of the world has responded, you can see the intensity of the earthquake. And Pakistan very well extended its cooperation, its support, sympathy, paramedical staff, the utility goods. Everything is being sent to Turkiye and to Syria to rehabilitate and to
help those who are in need.
Those who are in great need of the support.
And I think this is what we need to do, help those who are in need, because those people have helped us when we were in need. We've been joined online by Air Marshal retired Shahid Alvi Saab. He is Pakistan's ambassador to Syria and based in Damascus. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. First of all, sir, I'd like to understand the situation on the ground, because you can give us a better point of view as far as the aftershocks, as far as the devastation caused in Syria and in Turkey is concerned.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Walaikum assalam, sir, we can hear you.
So, as you just asked, as the time is passing, I think more and more tragic news are appearing, which is a typical in case of an earthquake of such magnitude. As of now, there are at least 1,500 dead and more than 3,000 injured. And I just heard that around 90 people are still trapped in debris in the city of Aleppo. So this is just the latest in decade-long series of tragedies. Many people are very scared. They don't want to go back to their house, if we call them house in this case. They are ruined sometime. And thousands of homes have been destroyed, displacing families and exposing them to freezing rain. And by Wednesday, I'm told that temperature is expected to drop several degrees below zero. And there are many children who are in the street. So this is the condition at the moment.
All right, sir. Also, you talked about those families or those people who are buried under rubble. We are also hearing stories of many, I mean, the number is exceeding our counts as far as those who are still in need of help. How is the world reacting to this dastardly earthquake that has happened in Syria as well as in Turkey, sir?
Yeah, firstly, I'll talk about the government agencies over here. So they are working round the clock beside volunteers. And there are about 32 INGOs which are working beside UN agencies already in the field. Aga Khan Foundation is also contributing with their 400 to 600 staff. So all in all, there is a determination. And generally, the people here don't panic. But having said that, they badly need immediate assistance from the world community, as they lack resources because of the destruction caused in the last 12 years of war. And as far as the world community is concerned, well, there are aircrafts which are landing every day from around the world. And at the moment, mostly from the region around. But as we heard yesterday, even US and European countries, they have also shown willingness to contribute. So what they basically need, they need blankets, they need winter clothing and shoes, food baskets, rubble removal tools, generator, and so on and so forth. They have given us a list also, which I have posted to our relevant authorities like NDM in Pakistan, and they are also working on that. And there is a list of medicines which are urgently needed. But let me add that there is a load shedding of around 18 hours a day in most part of the country, and there is a scarcity of oil to run plants to generate electricity. And this is unfortunately the same country which used to export oil a decade back.
All right.
So,
sir, kindly stay on line with us. We've got also another guest in the studios. We'll go to him and then we'll revert back to you to understand a bit the general situation as far as this earthquake is concerned. Naveed Aman Khan Saab, you've just heard the situation as far as Syria is concerned. Our ambassador there, Air Marshal retired Shahid Alvi Saab, gave us a brief on what is the present situation. Around 32 NGOs are working there, and there is also help from the Aga Khan Foundation. But there is a lot of effort to be made as far as Syria is concerned, because there has been 11 years of civil war in that country, and that has come, and this earthquake has kind of compounded the plight of the people over there. How can Pakistan help, Naveed Saab? Pakistan's Foreign Office has reiterated that it is going to be there to help its Syrian brothers. How important is Pakistan's help to Syria and to Turkey?
Pakistan's role has always been very important for the Muslim world in particular. And wherever calamity struck or hit in the entire world, Pakistan has always been in the front line of any other, like any other country. In past, whenever Pakistan have been in trouble, in earthquake or in floods or in any matter, Turkey has always been helpful to Pakistan. And now Pakistan, it's the obligation of Pakistan that we stand by Turkey and Syria shoulder to shoulder in all aspects of life. In particular, the first phase is to bring out the effectees or the hit human beings from the debris, from the wreckage. I suspect the casualties and the injuries might have gone to 20,000 to 30,000, and I am not as exaggeration.
The number is only going to increase with time, Naveed Saab. This is what I feel as well. But Naveed Saab, in this whole thing, we've seen how Pakistan is going to help its brethren in need, whether it be in Turkey or in Syria. As far as Turkey is concerned, there's a 51-member rescue team that has arrived in Turkey. Before that is also an urban search and rescue team comprising rescue experts, sniffer dogs, search equipment, medical teams comprising doctors, nursing staff that has also reached Turkey and has now gone to Aman to help those in need. Are other countries also as on the forefront as Pakistan is as far as helping its brotherly countries is concerned?
Yes, it is. You know, the intensity is too big, and the reaction is very good, very positive and encouraging from the entire world, especially the US, UAE, and the other countries. They have equally, they are doing very good. They are showing a positive gesture to Turkey and Syria. Equally, as compared to Pakistan, Pakistan is not behind any other country.
Because Pakistan understands the plight of these people. This is what we said at the beginning of the show as well. Air Marshal Shahid Alvi Saab, aftershocks, we've heard so many aftershocks that have happened in the region. Could you kindly give us a brief of how many aftershocks Syria has gone through since this major earthquake struck both the countries?
Actually, yesterday around 1:30 in the afternoon, there was a big aftershock of magnitude 7.6. So it really jolted everything, and people got very scared. In Syria, there has never been an earthquake in the past 100 years. So these people, they just don't know about the earthquake. So there was a news, in the social media that there is another earthquake of the magnitude 9 which is likely to occur. So people refuse to go back to their homes. So this was another emergency situation for the rescue teams, how to convince the people to go back to their homes, because it's very windy. Its temperatures are below zero, and so it compounded the problems. And after that, there are many small aftershocks which sitting in Damascus are not felt. But I'm told that in the border region where there was an epicenter of this earthquake, there are small shocks which the people are experiencing, and it is adding to their fear.
But fear is something that causes a lot of dispersion amongst the public, which is already compounded, as you yourself said, by issues, whether it be the civil war since the last 11 years, whether it be this earthquake that has caused further havoc to the already plightful state. When you talk about the decreasing temperatures, and you talked about the freezing temperatures that are also going to arrive in Syria, what are the efforts that are being made in order to help those who have survived and those who no longer have any place to live or maybe any clothes to wear?
Yeah, because everybody is helping, and within their community, actually the past decade has made the people of Syria very resilient, and which is the outcome of their character also. I mean, around 6 million are already internally displaced, and their earnings have actually reduced by 5 times. But still, we find that there are no street crimes, and it's a security which prevails all around. So, in such atmosphere, when this calamity was hit, people, volunteers came, and they are trying to give as much shelter as possible in this, freezing temperature and very difficult circumstances. But still the efforts are in hand, and I'm sure there is no one who is in the streets without winter clothing or something like that. We also have a Pakistani school over here in Damascus, so students were motivated to contribute for the national cause. And I'm sure we will be able to generate few truckloads from here also. Besides, PI is also flying tomorrow with 777 with relief goods, and inshallah we will receive that tomorrow. And there is a private senior airline which is willing to send its airplane for relief goods to Pakistan. So inshallah in future we will do that also. So people of Pakistan are expected to come forward and contribute for their Syrian brothers at this time.
All right, Mr. Alvi, you've talked about the current state of affairs as far as this earthquake is concerned. Which are the major cities in Syria that have been majorly impacted by this earthquake?
These are mostly those cities which are bordering Turkey. So this is Aleppo, and then there is Hama, which is towards the central side. Then there are coastal cities, Tartus, Latakia. So these are the four cities which are mostly hit. But unfortunately, there is one more city which I think is worstly affected. It is Idlib. But Idlib is now one of those last stronghold of rebel. So the casualty figure from that is not confirmed, but I'm told that most of the buildings in that city are actually razed to the ground.
Sir, do you have any information as far as some kind of a ceasefire in the wake of this earthquake is concerned between the warring factions in Syria? Are both parties concerned helping each other and those who are in need, or are they still continuing with their separate incursions and actions?
Well, there is no news as such of any kind of a reconciliation, but there was a uncomfortable peace which was prevailing earlier also. So I believe that in such situation, they would be cooperating and they would allow the passage of relief goods and other things. This is my expectation and my reading.
All right. Finally, sir, would you give us an update? You've told us that there's 18 hours of load shedding in Syria, as you see, because there's some kind of issue with electricity due to a plant not functioning properly. Do you have an update on to when this issue will be resolved?
Well, now, since you have asked me, there is a region which is towards the Iraqi side, Al-Hasakiye. So this is a region which is controlled by opposing forces, and there's an American presence over there. So all the oil wells are in that area. So they don't get any oil from their own country. And sometimes from them they buy a little bit of that. So till the time this issue is not resolved and those oil wells are not handed back to them, like I earlier said that there was a time when they were exporting oil. So this condition would remain as it is.
All right. Thank you very much, Marshal retired Shahid Alvi Saab, Ambassador of Pakistan to Syria. Yes, sir, you were saying, if you would like
just the last thing that I'm told that in 2010, when the civil war started, around 40 to 50 Syrian pounds were equal to $1, and now it's almost 7,200.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for the update, sir, and we wish you all the very best. And I hope that the 777 arrives in Syria very soon to help their Syrian brothers who are in need. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Air Marshal retired Shahid Alvi, Pakistan's ambassador to Syria, joining us from Damascus online, giving us an update on the situation of the people in Syria. Naveed, Aman Khan Saab. Pakistan's efforts are, of course, really need to be highlighted as much as possible because of the current state of affairs that Pakistan is itself embroiled in post all the issues that Pakistan has seen after water submerged 1/3 of Pakistan. What should be the role of organizations such as the United Nations, for example, organizations such as the SCO maybe, and other organizations of which Türkiye is a part, of which Syria is a part, the OIC, for example, to help the people who have lost everything as a result of this earthquake in both the countries?
Definitely, Khalid. OIC, Arab League, European Union, African Union, and United Nations, all the forums, all the communities, all the countries, all the nations, they need to come forward and do what they can do at maximum for the recovery and rehabilitation, for the sympathy of both of the nations, because at this stage both of the nations are suffering a lot, and Pakistan within its economically Pakistan is these days in uncomfortable state, but even then from this state Pakistan has decided to help both countries, Turkiye and Syria. This is a very positive gesture of Pakistan as far as the government is concerned. The philanthropists are concerned. Pakistani philanthropists need to come ahead and help those suffering in or facing.
And I think all the Islamic entrepreneurs
Definitely.
and philanthropists from across the Islamic world, Muslim world, need to come forward and help the brothers who are in need. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we know that in the cabinet meeting it has been decided to create the Prime Minister's Relief Fund that has been now established for our Turkish friends. Also 1 month salaries of all the cabinet members have been donated for their Turkish brethren, and 9 tons of consignment has reached Turkey. We've discussed this a little bit before. How do you feel, of course there was a telephonic conversation between Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Shehbaz Sharif Saab as well, in which Mr. Erdogan really thanked our Premier for his kind gesture as well. Do you feel this kind gesture from Pakistan and other Islamic countries and the other countries in the region need to continue? Because it's not going to end here, the number of casualties are going to increase.
Definitely. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, he enjoys personal relationship on the state level or on the family level with the Turkish leader and the other leaders of the world as well. This is a positive gesture of Prime Minister of Pakistan. On the behalf of the nation of Pakistan, Prime Minister has talked to Tayyip Erdogan and consoled him, sympathized, and assured him that Pakistan will stand with Turkey and will extend every sort of support and help whatsoever is possible on the from Pakistan. Not only for Turkey but also equally for Serbia as well, Syria as well.
I'd like to refer you to a tweet that our Prime Minister posted. He said that solidarity with Turkiye and Syria should translate into tangible and timely material support for the suffering humanity. He also talked about the devastating earthquake that has hit both the countries, scenes of death and destruction that are mind-numbing. It breaks the heart to witness the sheer scale of unfolding human tragedy. The Prime Minister is going to go to Turkey to express solidarity with the Turkish people and of course here the Turkish brethren and Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan. How important is this visit also?
It is very important. It is very important to move the entire international community, the Arab world, the Western world, to move towards Turkey and Syria at this stage. Once they will move, they will observe what has happened in both of the countries, what a tragedy has happened in both of the countries. Definitely, when they will move, when they will observe the things, they will be in a better position to deliver maximum of their potentials and the capabilities, their resources towards both of the countries and the nations.
Final question, Naveed Aman Khan Saab, do you feel the world, including the Islamic world, including the countries who have been devastated like Syria, like Turkey, like Pakistan, like other countries, now need to garner up all the efforts in order to build an infrastructure that is climate resilient, that is earthquake resilient?
Absolutely. This is a wonderful idea. The Islamic world in particular need to form such forum to combat such calamities like earthquake or drought or floods or any sort of such thing which hit any nation of the world in particular, but also the Muslim world in particular. This forum should be constituted at its earliest. I think Pakistan should take initiative to form to formulate this forum.
Maybe some kind of suggestion needs to be given at forums such as the OIC or the SCO or the Arab League and so many other fora. And I hope the United Nations also steps in as far as helping these countries in need is concerned. Thank you very much, Naveed, Aman, Khan Saab, analyst, who have joined us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the number of casualties are of course increasing as time goes by, and this is an unfortunate incident, and Pakistan has seen this incident as well in Azad, Jammu and Kashmir way back in 2005, where we saw tens of thousands of people devastated and perish in this tragedy. And we just hope that the world comes together as one to help our brethren in Turkiye as well as in Syria. The world needs to come as one when it comes to tragedies such as these. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the latest update as far as all of this is concerned. 349 days, ladies and gentlemen, since this conflict erupted, and this conflict shows no signs of abating. This is what concerns a lot of important world leaders, including the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres. To discuss this, we've been joined by Dr. Salma Malik. She's a foreign affairs expert. Dr. Salma Malik, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Salma Malik, 349th day is today since this conflict started between the two countries, and we don't see any end in sight. You remember at the beginning there were some rounds of negotiations, in fact 2 rounds of negotiations, and the second round we thought would be fruitful. Nothing happened afterwards. Where is all of this going? Is this going to be a very long drawn out war, and if so, what are going to be the implications?
Assalamu alaikum, Omar. Thank you so much for having me on your program. Interestingly, when we look at how this 1 year has unfolded, and you just wrapped up initial negotiations and discussions, and then nothing, then just like hitting a firewall, I'm kind of reminded of the 1980s when the US was all out to take on the mighty Soviet Union, and they tried their level best through proxies, through introduction of new weapon systems, anything and everything in their arsenal or toolkit to bring Soviet Union down. And I think this is sort of like a revisit to those old times, where the US is using the sanctions, it's using innovative technology, alliances, so many other things, and Ukraine as a proxy, although it's not exactly that classic proxy that we know of, because here there is nothing hidden behind the curtain, but what they're trying to do is just bring Russian might down by prolonging the conflict and not really coming to terms with it. Russia at the same time is also doing the same. So it's kind of a clash of the titans, where both the titans are trying to show who's more mightier, who doesn't blink first. Whosoever would blink first would lose the game. So it's a match of egos, it's a match of several things, but the biggest casualty in this match is neither Russia nor a global economy, which is actually squarely hit, but it's the people of Ukraine and the Russian people by themselves who are living through that moment and fearing the fire and the bombs every day. So as in any war, it's only the people. You don't need to put nationality to what those people are, but they are suffering. And then, of course, as a result is the global economy, and there's a global recession, and countries such as ours and so many others end up suffering as a result, direct and indirect consequence of that. But no one is going to come to the tables. No one is going to negotiate because it doesn't suit them. The US military-industrial complex now has a field day. It hadn't found its match in the previous years. So it's rolling out one new costly piece after another. And there's this big arms market, thanks to Russia's adventure, that they're trying to exploit.
Now, Dr. Salma Malik, I'd like to quote something that Antonio Guterres said very recently. And he said, "I fear the world is not sleepwalking into a wider war. I fear it is doing so with its eyes wide open." Why?
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. I don't know why we have such a great appetite for war, conflict, blood and gore. People enjoy when they go to the movie theaters. They enjoy the Mola Jats and so many other movies.
But that is a film, Dr. Salma. That is not reality.
that is not reality. But I think people actually think that this is also not reality. This is a play. It's a play unfolding on a larger global market. But you see, the people who are actually encouraging or investing in this conflict are, again, as I mentioned previously, the military industrial complex, the big economies, those who end up benefiting from this. The fact that the EU and the US has collectively put a ban on or a cap on the Russian crude oil and all also provides that market impetus, which is making them capture the market. So it doesn't really bother them that whether they enter the war with eyes wide shut or wide open. They're fine with the gains that they get out of this war, and they're willing to go an extra mile. It may not be able to comprehend for people such as you and I. We don't want to have conflict, but yes, there is a huge global appetite. Even if we see after the end of Cold War, had there been a moment of peace in the war in the world? Unfortunately, not. Even if it started with small ethnic conflicts in select pockets, there were zones of conflict, so many other things. But then you had larger theaters of war. You had the arc of crisis. You had the clash of civilization, where the Muslims were the target, where the Muslim countries were the theater of war. The war remained away from mainland US, and it also somewhat remains. EU and the Europe is very much affected because it's happening right next door. But the US, to show that it is the most powerful and the mightiest, would love to bring the war home, and home for them or the near abroad is Europe. They empathize with them, they provide them with that weapon, and the amount of money they are getting out of all this enterprise is amazing.
All
So
right, so you were talking of the European Union, Dr. Salma. I'd like to understand why countries such as Hungary, such as Slovakia are still kind of siding with Russia under the current pressure by the European Union to side with Ukraine. Do you feel there's going to be a further split into the EU as far as their backing of the Ukraine crisis and the party they back is concerned?
I think it's more a matter of survival. They just want to see as to what is a better option for them. You see, after one entire year, slowly and gradually that the US is now bringing in the arsenal. It's now bringing in new tanks, new technologies, big weapons. Now they're introducing some ground-based missiles that would change the theater of operations and war. So it's a slow warming up. In the initial months, the US and its allies allowed Ukraine to be bombed. There was a lot of empathy and a lot of support to Ukraine, but there wasn't the type of, the Ukrainians would time and again voice in a very muffled tone about the lack of material support that they were expecting the US would be very forthcoming with. Plus the fact that Ukraine also thought that it would get the membership, which it had not been able to get the membership. So some countries are still trying to weigh their pros and cons and figure out as to where they would be more safe, whether it is a positive safety or it is a negative safety or security guarantee. So they are trying to play their bets accordingly, and here that's where these two countries fall. Whereas rest of the countries have their own concerns, they have their own markets, they're trying to figure out as to staying with the US might make them go for the better option. But at the end of the day, whenever this war ends, it will make the world very poor. It will make the world extremely sad, and a people who would be languishing for the longest in abject misery as well as lack of development and so many other things rolled in one. So I think if the UN can go beyond the mere rhetoric and it can do anything better than that, and I know this is ideal speak because UN is what its members are all about, there is a need for all these countries to get together and seek peace. At the moment, there's a lot of bravado that is making these countries walk this particular walk. And I think there is a time that countries realize that enough is enough. Because
All right.
at the end of the
Dr.
day,
Salma, Malik, I'd like to understand a little bit as far as the sanctions side on Russia is also concerned. The price caps on Russian oil that have hit Moscow's revenues from oil and gas exports by nearly 30% or about 8 billion US dollars from a year back. This has been said by the International Energy Agency chief. Also, Ukraine sending letters to companies to back the International Olympic Committee, urging them to keep Russian athletes out of the Paris Olympic Games. The mayor of Paris, who has also now said that he opposes the inclusion of Russia in the Olympic Games as the war continues. Will those sanctions put some kind of pressure on Russia, in your point of view?
yes, it is putting pressure, but at the same time, you also have countries such as China and India who have a huge appetite for energy resources, using this particular sanction to get the best deals out of whatever is available. Then you also have genuine countries such as Pakistan who are energy deficient, and they require quality energy or gas and all that. And the petroleum products. So you would have, and of course, here we also see that the Americans initially, when they frowned upon Pakistan's going to Russia and the previous Pakistani leadership, and there was so much of domestic as well as international clamor that we faced at the end of it. Today, when Pakistan talks about getting Russian oil, there is not exactly too much of opposition coming from the Western quarters or mainly from the US, because they know that we have very genuine energy needs. Yet at the same time, when the Indians or the Chinese are doing it, that is because they have a huge appetite. That's not so much of a genuine energy need than the huge appetite for having cheaper oil available to them, and they are going to exploit the situation as much as possible. So Russia does have ways of kind of financing itself or sustaining itself, but at the same time, again, I go back to the fact that at the end of this all, whenever this ends, it is going to make Russia, Ukraine, and the rest of the world much poorer than where it stands today. And that is a very, very tough situation that we need to look into. At the moment, Russia is using, despite the sanctions, whatever licit and illicit sale of oil energy resources that it is making to finance this particular war, which is, to be very honest, in certain senses quite senseless. But and you have actually a very Afghanistan-like situation where the US is very happy to pour in as much as capital as possible, and the sanctions are part of that. The fact that the international community is trying to turn Russia into a pariah state is also part of that international campaign, where everyone is clubbed against Russia to teach them a lesson. So this is a very, very fascinating situation. It is not a world like the old Cold War, where you had very well dignified, thought out portions of the world, half of the world pitched against the other half of the world. Here you have select few countries in one side, and then the rest of the world siding with each other on the other side. So the stakes are pretty high.
All right. Dr. Salma, in all of these pressure tactics that you have called upon and discussed during this show, there are also some diplomatic efforts, whether at the same time, I don't know whether they're going to reap any fruit or not. The head of the IAEA is going to visit Moscow. The Kremlin says it's not going to meet Vladimir Putin, but of course he's going to Moscow. So there's some concern as well from the IAEA front as far as the use of nuclear arsenal is concerned. Then there's Zelensky, who's been invited to take part in a summit of EU leaders. He could be in Brussels as soon as this week. The US Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to discuss the US support for Ukraine when she travels to Germany next week. In all of these efforts, could peace be given some kind of a chance? Or do you feel that all the factions are intent on highlighting the war aspect, the defense industry aspect of it all?
I would take the second option, because this is precisely what they're doing. No one at the moment, I mean, 1 year may seem too long for us, but for superpowers, 1 year is nothing. America wasted 20 years in Afghanistan and ended up making a worse situation of the country than ever before. So they have a lot of time at hand. They don't want to go anywhere. But the fact is that if any of these countries are gathering in Europe for the betterment and for world peace, then it's actually welcomed. But the fact that Kamala Harris is going to Germany, so is Zelensky,
Zelensky
and
is
so
going to Brussels.
Brussels and all of these leaders are coming together, and they're meeting at the EU headquarters and all, doesn't really mean that they're meeting there to end the war at an amicable fashion or at an amicable note. What they're doing is they're just gathering together to show each other support and show each other that the force potential that they put forward. They're really not in a mood at the moment to talk to Russia. And of course, the smear campaign against Russia is going to get heightened with time as more and more weapons industry becomes activated. We have the UAVs doing whatever they're doing, miniaturized weapons. So it's just the party has just started. Wait and see how more lethal the stakes would get, which is actually a tragedy, but that's how the international community works.
When you talk of
That's what
stakes, when you talk of stakes and when you talk of war taking precedence over peace, I'd like to understand in the context of Ukraine's governor of Russian-occupied Luhansk province, Mr. Shahid, who said Russia is pouring in reinforcements for an offensive that could begin as soon as next week or around the 15th of February. Then there are fierce battles in Donetsk region that are very difficult as per Mr. Zelensky. Then there is also the Russian Defense Ministry that says its forces have taken control of a Mykolaiivka, which is a village in Ukraine's Donetsk region. More and more offensives. Who is backing Russia? Where does Russia have enough arms on its own to sustain a war like this if it continues in this manner?
If you look at this war from Russian perspective, it's very asymmetric. How much could Zelensky do? I mean, Ukraine didn't have the type of weaponry which it is now showing to the world, and most of that weaponry is what's coming from the rest of the Europe and the US. When it comes to Russia, it was a very disproportionate battlefield. Russia definitely had an edge over Ukraine, and the fact that the threats about the use of nuclear weapons and all, which were actually a very, very gung-ho type of approach by Putin, but that's how he has built his image, riding a tiger, doing whatever he's doing. So now it's a situation, it's kind of a do or die situation for Putin as well. His reputation is at stake. For 1 year, for one long year, his ego hasn't really gotten satisfied. And that also provides the US with once again doing what it did in Afghanistan against Russia's predecessor, Soviet Union, where they brought in weapons from Soviet-backed countries and used the Soviet weaponry against the Soviet. None of the weapons during the Afghan war or quote-unquote jihad time period till the Geneva Accords, except for towards the end, the Stinger missile systems, none of those weapons were made in Pakistan, made in USA, made in UK, even made in Israel. All of those weapons that were coming were Russian weapons being used against the Russians. And the money was pouring in from any and every quarter from Muslim world as well. So again, here we see a similar pattern happening where the entire globe is getting together under the US umbrella and fighting this war. Europeans
in all of this context, a very small last question, Dr. Salma, and that is about cultural linkages and cultural similarities between Ukraine and Russia. We're hearing of Ukraine's main Catholic church moving to a new date of 25th of December to celebrate Christmas instead of the 7th of January as it used to be celebrated before. Is it a deliberate attempt to dissociate Ukraine from Russia in more ways than one? Small answer, Dr. Salma.
Absolutely. It couldn't be anything more than that. Absolutely. It's very symbolic. It's virtually that you are severing your religious ties from your motherland. So it carries a lot of kind of that signature. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Salma Malik, foreign affairs expert, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the latest as far as this crisis, this conflict between Ukraine and Russia is concerned. Today is the 349th day of that conflict. Around a year has passed since this conflict began. Let's come to our last story, and that concerns Chinese scientists that have developed snail mucus into an adhesive for wounds, which is a very interesting concept. If you get my gist, the fact remains that nature is full of remedies for different issues, for different maladies that people are confronted with, and this is no exception. Now, the Chinese scientists have developed this natural biological adhesive from snail mucus to heal traumatic injuries as well as chronic wounds. This is a study that was published in the journal Nature Communications recently. This hydrogel that is prepared is going to effectively accelerate the healing of full thickness skin wounds in both healthy and diabetic people, and they have already tested this in rats, and so now they are going to move to human beings. Interesting concept, and I hope more such concepts will be coming in the days to come, because nature is, of course, healing in nature. We need to take as much as we can from it. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Allah Hafiz.